welcome to Rotary in Action. I'm your host, Marty Peters, and today we have a very special program on a thing called Group Study Exchange. This is a program that was created by Rotary International years ago that actually sends men and women that are actually non-Rotarians that go all over the world helping to bring changes to affect education and a whole variety of other things in different nations around the world. This evening we're going to have three very special guests that can be with us for the first half, and they will be sharing their experiences with us. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back. It's a privilege to be introducing these three guests. To my right is Anna Roseboro, a very special lady who's a teacher. Next to Anna is Bill Davis, another teacher from our area. And lastly, a Rotarian by the name of Sandi Rimer, who was a team leader that went to a group study exchange. And Sandi, I wanted to throw this open to you. Tell us how this Rotary Group Study Exchange begins. What's the selection process? But more importantly, how are these teams picked?
Well, quite frankly, it takes on a different form in different parts of the world. In my particular area, we choose only teachers to go on a group study exchange, and the inbound team is also only teachers. But in other areas, that's not true. They can choose many different professions and have only one profession represented by each person on the team.
And they be like a plumber or a fireman or a policeman or what have you.
Doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, you know, whatever it happens to be.
And in the event of teachers being selected, what was the mission of doing teachers? Tell us why your area decided to just do teachers.
Well, quite frankly, there's a greater ripple effect. Teachers impact more lives. And when our teachers would go into the classrooms, in my case in Ecuador, when we would go into the classrooms in Ecuador, those children could see what Americans were like and how we conducted ourselves and what our values were. And the same came when we came back.
And Bill, I understand that you were a teacher that had been selected. What was your process? Was it a bidding war, or how did this happen?
Well, no, I found out about the GSE quite by accident. We had a student at school that went to the Rotary speech contest, and one day the speech teacher came back with a napkin with a phone number on it and said they were looking for that Rotary was looking for Spanish-speaking teachers to go on a month-long study exchange in Ecuador. So I called the number and they sent me an application and I filled it out, not thinking much of it, and was really happy when they called me back to interview me. I was happy to get chosen.
So all these teachers are selected. And what's the process? There's a training process that goes on for these teachers before they're obviously sent to that other part of the world. What's that training process about? Sandi?
Well, quite frankly, we want them to understand what Rotary is all about and why we do what we do, and the different programs, how they're going to be an ambassador from our area to the area that we travel to, and how important it is to really be able to interact with the people there.
And when you're selecting these teachers, I'm assuming that they have to be able to be flexible when they're starting to travel.
Yes. Well, one thing's for sure, nothing stays the same. And when we go through the interview process, we ask them, one of the key questions is, how many times have you traveled in a group? What kind of a group? Because the group dynamic can change minute by minute, day by day. It's very exciting. It's wonderful.
Yeah. But I think you have to really be prepared for anything at the last minute to change, and that's just part of the game.
That's part of the action.
I'd like to have this opportunity, if we could, to have Sandi sort of share some of those pictures that you brought back from a trip that you made.
Sure.
Why don't we take a look at that, and you can just throw some comments over it when we're talking about it.
Here was a break. My team members and I decided to stop for a glass of wine or a beer or whatever. After we came back from Ecuador, we made several speeches to many different Rotary clubs, and here are three of us after a speech. And one of the things we did when we traveled to the schools, of course, was to interact with a lot of the students. And these are adolescent boys in their village called Chibuleo, and llamas agriculture is part of their culture. This was especially exciting because we all got to stand on the equator, and that's the 6 of us standing on the equator. Here we are, prior to the time of leaving, we made a presentation at the Salk Institute in La Jolla, California. And after we came back, we went to another Rotary convention where we got to sit and talk and laugh and enjoy each other's company. One of my team members in Ecuador, he was very unusual in that he was tall and blonde, and these young children were used to seeing dark-haired men. The team that came from Ecuador came into our area and brought their flag, and we enjoyed them immensely. And here we are once again in an agricultural community. These young boys were especially excited to see Americans. They had never met Americans before, and they didn't really understand why we were there.
I look at this as being an opportunity where these men and women are traveling, but also sharing their values and experiences. And I noticed that, Anna, you had been on a different group study exchange, and you'd been going to Africa. Tell us a little bit about that trip and how it evolved over the time before you left and when you finally got into country.
It was an exciting opportunity for me. I saw the announcement on the bulletin board and at our school, and people were talking about group study exchange, and I said, well, what is that? And then they mentioned that they were going to Africa, and for me, that was a dream come true, to be able to go, and primarily to go and talk about the United States, talk about the area where I live, talk about education, and the possibility of going to the country that my ancestors came from. And so for group study exchange to be able to pull all of those things together made it a particularly emotional as well as professional experience for me.
And as a teacher, you could bring back these stories that you had heard over there and also could share with those children over in Africa, the various stories.
It made the literature real. We had been reading the stories about Uganda and talking about the villages and the clothing, and when I was able to come back and show pictures that I was there where those stories were written, it just greatly expanded my experience personally, but for my students as well.
Yeah. And when you bring those, I'm assuming you brought these great pictures back to share with your students.
Absolutely.
But would you mind sharing some of those with us as your experience? I think we've got a tape right here that we can take a look at, and please just comment along with it when we look at the tape.
I went with a group of 5 teachers. We represented the variety of education in our area from suburban elementary schools. But when we went to Mombasa, we were hosted by Dr. Virendra Sir, who was a Rotarian, but who also took us to a school where they planted 5 trees, one for each member of our team. It was very special to know that we were part of that. When we visited the French-speaking island of Mauritius, we visited the Institute of Education, where teachers were just beginning to be trained there. However, when we went to Uganda, the impact of the civil unrest nearly overwhelmed us. However, the warmth of our hostess just overshadowed that. They did all that they could to tell us about their community, to welcome us into their homes. My joy, of course, came when I met the students at the schools. They were excited to see us, but also excited to tell us about themselves. And then visiting the various clubs while we were there, we had an opportunity to talk about who we are, but mainly we had a chance to listen. We had an opportunity on one evening to share the birthday party of a young man who, 50 years old there, is considered old. And then
thanks a lot.
Finally, seeing drums being made from umvuli wood and visiting the tombs of the kings made it a very emotional experience for me, because I wondered perhaps this was the home of my ancestors as well. And being able to share this experience and to hear the people who said, you must be from our country, you look like us. And then they would give me tribal names and sing and clap and just made me feel very much at home. So when I returned to the United States, joyfully sharing the experience, wearing the clothing that my host family had made for me, and sharing the flags of the various countries and the banners from the various clubs with where we spoke, made it a round experience for me.
What a powerful time that you could bring all that information back and share that also with your students in the classes. That must be exciting.
Was able to share it with classes, but also with churches in our community. We talked to various groups, and then when they heard about our experience, we were able to send a half a ton of books with the cooperation of students from our school as well as members of the youth groups and the churches in the area. And many of the young people agreed to become pen pals, and so the relationships have gone on.
And grown and grown. It's the rippling effect, as we said earlier.
Very much so.
Sandi, you know, all these people that are picked by Group Study Exchange, they're not Rotarians. These are people in the community that have this great opportunity. What's the magic? How does that extrapolate in the rippling effect, I guess, of the community? How does this help the community get better and grow bigger?
Well, from my perspective, one of the things that happens is more and more people actually learn about Rotary and what we do, and that's my bias. But I think more importantly, each of these people go out and they touch so many lives, especially when they're teachers. Yeah. They touch so many lives, and they're able to tell the story of Rotary, but they're also able to tell about their experiences and how it impacted them and how they saw that they were impacting those that they met. And so I learned a great deal about the field of education as well. So it was a good experience for all, I think.
And Bill, when you were coming back, I imagine the students in class are just so excited to have you share those experiences. Did you have the same kind of a fallout eventually with those kids in classes?
Definitely. That the students that were sophomores when I went on my trip are seniors now, and for the last 2 years, I don't know how many trips that they've made across the border to orphanages and to build homes because they've gotten excited about serving other people. And they've done a lot of that just on their own. And they're still doing it 2 years later.
That's the real test, I guess. Mm-hmm. You know, we've been excited to have you all here, and what I'd like to do now is to share with our audience a very special video production that we created some time ago. If we can roll that, we'll be right back. Rotary International was founded in 1905. The goal of Rotary International is to seek peace through service to communities. Service above self has been the motto of Rotary International. Today, there are roughly 30,000 Rotary clubs in over 160 countries around the world. 1.2 million men and women are members in clubs that are all part of this unique international service organization. All clubs worldwide participate in various programs to fill the needs of communities. Each Rotary Club identifies its community needs and links up with other Rotary clubs to match funds that provide a school, a deep water well, a library, a hospital, or whatever is needed for that local community. Thousands of projects are completed each year thanks to the generosity of Rotarians and friends of Rotary. Whether in Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, or even North America, there are community needs that Rotarians help fulfill. Through this spirit of service above self, Rotarians build a fellowship that create friendships that last a lifetime. Men and women in Rotary provide the opportunity to reach out, help, and give hope to others. This service builds trust, and trust builds hope. Hope that through international service we can build a better world and create understanding and peace. This is the goal of Rotary International. This program is a window for you to see the projects supported by the Rotarians in your own community. Welcome back, and it's now my privilege to introduce two very special guests, Maureen Fonseca, who is also a teacher in our community, and Pat Kelly, who is a teacher that both of these ladies have been along with Sandi on a group study exchange that went down to Ecuador. Pat, let me ask you, when you were in the country and you've come back, what were the experiences that you had that made it so unique for you?
Well, first of all, we visited such a variety of classrooms. We visited elementary schools, secondary schools, a teacher training institute. And I saw tremendous talent among all of the teachers in Ecuador working under conditions that were very, very difficult. Yeah. And in the middle of all this difficult situation, I saw creativity, enthusiasm, hope. And the most profound moment for me was at the Teacher Training Institute. After we had toured the country for about a month, we saw teachers with no pay, we saw teachers with no schools, we saw kids with no schools, some kids with teachers, little supplies, I mean, just incredible. And I asked these student teachers, why are you becoming a teacher? And I mean, they weren't ignorant of the situation, they knew the reality of the situation, and they just, I remember one response was, I want to help my country. And I was thinking, if all of us as teachers keep that in mind, that it's not just a job, but we're helping our country and other countries, then that's really the gist of teaching. So when I'm in my classroom, if I'm having, the lights go out or something doesn't work, I think of that teacher's comment, and it gets me through our trying times that aren't really very trying.
Not that difficult at all.
Right.
That's the perspective I think we all need to have. And Maureen, tell us about your experiences when you were on your trip. What was so powerful that shook you when you were there?
I think probably one of the most moving times was when we were in Cuenca, and we had like 3 days at times in the morning when we could go and sit in the plaza. And we actually would go, and there was 2 little sisters who were homeless children, and they would shine shoes. And so we got really, really friendly with them, and were able to sit and talk with them and find out what their situation was, and came to realize that many of the reasons for which they couldn't go to school, we find those same situations in our country. And that was certainly a profound moment, making that connection and thinking that, you don't have to go far away to see what's close at home.
No, we miss that sometimes, right? Yeah. In our own backyards. Well, I think you have some slides that you wanted to share with us, and please join in and share with us the comments on this presentation.
This was a place we had gone to where the homes had been flooded out, and Rotary was building new homes for the families. And the children were so happy when we came out to greet them. In here, we also had an opportunity to go and speak to the former Secretary of Education. He gave us lots of information of things that were going on in the country. We also had the opportunity to go and visit a blind school. That was certainly incredible. There was one little girl there who got a standing ovation. I have never heard anyone play an organ the way that she did. Lots and lots of feeling into that. We also got to go and visit an indigenous community where the children were so happy, dressed in their indigenous clothing, studying about their own people. We also got to go and visit some village banks where you could see the women told about their stories of how their life had been changed just by being lent $50, a profound change. And we were very fortunate in that we got to go and visit lots and lots of different types of schools. And seconding what Pat said, we learned certainly a lot from the teachers in Ecuador. And we got to go out to the countryside as well as to the city. Every place we went, both the people and the children were very, very welcoming. And there's one little happy girl carrying around her little brother. We also got to go visit some plantations to see all the bananas are exported. And in particular, this little boy, I remember him, this young man, because so oftentimes we in our own schools have children who are isolated, and it's good to see that things can be done to help them, that school should be a very important place, a good place for everyone to be. And the little children certainly reminded us of that with all their happy faces.
Well, it seems to me that every school we talk about is that you want to make it a positive place for kids to go and learn and to feel good about. But you know, we've talked about your trips going outbound. Let's talk about the inbound, the teams that came from, in your case, from Ecuador. How did you treat them? Tell us a little bit about their experiences, Sandi, when they arrived in our own area.
Well, they were really very wide-eyed. You know, many of them, I would say all of them, had never been outside their own country or even on an airplane. So it was really a tremendous experience for them. And they stayed in the homes of Rotarians and also in the homes of the teachers that they had met while we were in their country. And so they got to see how we lived and how we interacted with our children or our spouses and in our communities. And they found that what they see on TV is not really what Americans are all about.
You mean it's not Baywatch?
No.
No.
Not Baywatch.
It's exciting to see that, because when you have them in your home, I imagine that even the appliances and some of the things you have in your home, they've never seen them before. Mm-hmm. Any fun times that you had taking them to a local place to eat?
They were here during a birthday. One of the incoming members celebrated a birthday the same day as Sandi. Yeah. So we had a joint birthday celebration, a bicultural, bilingual birthday celebration. So that was fun. But some of the teachers are from urban areas, mm-hmm. and then some are from rural areas. So some of them had some experiences and some of the same appliances and so forth. But what I enjoyed about having them in our country is that we were able to see ourselves through their eyes. And especially when they came and visited our classrooms, they commented, oh, the teachers sit on top of desks. And because their system is so much more formal. And I thought, next time I sit on top of a desk, I'll be more conscious of that. So just being able to see ourselves through their eyes was a very valuable experience for me.
And you shared with me before that you've had an effect, a profound effect on the way you're arranging curriculum now, because you work with adults.
Yes, I teach English to adult immigrants. And what I enjoy about bringing my Ecuador experience into my classroom is that it kind of validates their own personal histories and stories. For every story that we shared in Ecuador, my students, they each have a story to tell that's very similar in many other situations. But since I've been back, I've been very involved in creating a new program of study at our community college. And part of that program involves community service work. And that part, I'm not sure I would have incorporated if I hadn't had the experience with Rotary and going to GSE. Yeah. So yes, it's had an impact on curriculum for the whole program.
I think that a lot of times people don't understand that Rotary, in all the service that we do, our motto has always been service above self, but I always consider us to be hands-on. Right. You're not just talking the talk. We're out and walking it. And I think that's the benefit that you've had as having been involved with the group study exchange. Yes. On that note, I want to thank you both for being here, but I think we'd like to show another brief video that we've got, and we'll be right back.
Many places around the world are still fighting a war that most Americans don't know about, the war against polio. The paralyzing disease that held America hostage earlier this century continues to cripple thousands of children each year. Since 1985, Rotary International's 1.2 million members have joined the battle against polio. Rotary volunteers have fought this disease in their communities, educating parents about polio and helping health officials in vaccinating children everywhere. Along with Rotary's partners, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, over 1 billion children have been immunized against polio. The end of the war against polio is near. Once victory is achieved, this historic health drive will guide in the fight against other vaccine-preventable diseases, giving the children of the world a healthier future. To find out more about Rotary's Polio Plus program, visit www.rotary.org. Rotary, winning the war against polio.
Welcome back, and I know that tape that we just were able to watch is really a profound one, another program that Rotary is involved with the eradication of polio. But you know, I wanted to end this, Pat, and we were talking at that break about how you were able to pull back and sort of look at yourself in, rather than short span, but the time that you were away and you came back. Tell us about how you felt after coming back home.
Yes, the life of a teacher is very hectic. I think a lot of people might not realize that. At the adult level, we teach our classes in 50-minute increments. So all day long, my day is in 50-minute increments. I think it's even more stressful for the elementary and secondary teachers, where they have to, at the elementary level, change lessons every 15 to 20 minutes. So it's a very hectic schedule. And then on top of that, we have parent conferences and meetings and reports to write and curriculum to develop. So it's very hectic. To take a month off during the school year to go to another country to observe another system and teachers gave us time to reflect on our own profession. Among ourselves, we had time to talk about education among ourselves, where we don't always have time to do that during the week. Also, it helped us to reassess as professionals and as teachers, what have we contributed to our profession so far, and what can we yet contribute in the future. So I think that was invaluable to have a month out of the school year to observe another system, but at the same time, by observing that system, it taught us so much about ourselves.
Pat, thank you again. That's the best thing we've heard, I believe. I want to thank you all, Anna, especially for your sharing of your experiences in Africa. I think that's just lovely. Maureen, again to you, thanks so many times for all the stuff you've done since you've been on the GSE. Pat, for your sharing. Bill, again, keep getting those kids straight down at that high school. I love it. And Sandi, as a team leader for Rotary, I know this was one of the joyous parts of your whole life. And
For sure.
I'm so excited that we've had this chance to share all of our experiences tonight with you. And please understand that this program is called Rotary in Action for you, the viewers, to get involved. And if you'd like, you can contact your own Rotary clubs in your own communities and see what they're doing on Group Study Exchange or any of the other great programs. With that, I want to thank you. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next time. This is Marty Peters saying thanks for Rotary in Action.